Hey everybody, it's Sally back again, and this is now the last video in my introductory series, getting started on your silver E-type knitting machine. And I'm going to talk a little bit about garment finishing. So I'm not actually going to be doing any knitting on this, it's all about finishing off. When I first got my very first knitting machine a million years ago in the 1980s, with it I got an hour's free tuition at the shop that sold it to me. I got sent home with a machine. I think it was 2 audio cassettes, the instruction book, and a book of very, very simple patterns. Now, the first machine I had was a chunky or bulky gauge, a 9mm machine. It had no patterning capability, was very simple and very straightforward, and that possibly saved my bacon because I got to grips with it reasonably quickly. Funnily enough, listening to the tapes was helpful, I do remember that much. And so within a few days I'd got the hang of being able to cast on and cast off and increasing and decreasing. And when I went back to the shop for my hour's worth of tuition, the lady there said, oh yeah, well you seem to have got the hang of this. Is there anything else you'd like to know? And I said, I want to know how to make my garments look professional. To this day, I still see a lot of hand-knitted things. The knitting is absolutely beautiful. The sewing up is an eyesore. And you think, what a pity. You know, they've invested, particularly hand-knitters, invested hours, days, weeks probably into knitting these beautiful pieces of knitting. And then they've made a complete dog's dinner of sewing it together. So I said, I want to know how to finish off. And so she taught me, we've shown you this before, she taught me how to do this beautiful sewn down neck. She taught me the principle of the short rowing, and also, you can't really see it on the body piece because it's in tuck stitch, but I'll show you the sleeve seam, where this has got a series of fully fashioned increases coming up the sleeve. But the actual sleeve seam itself, you'd be hard pushed to spot exactly where it is in that little strip down between those 2 sets of increases, because it's mattress stitched together, and mattress stitch is invisible. So I'm going to just quickly do mattress stitching and also how to pin and backstitch a neck. So, as I was saying in the previous video, your tension swatches, tension pieces can be very useful for practicing other things on. Just want to find some scissors and cut these tails of yarn off. Arm yourself with some spare bits of knitting. If you haven't got any spare bits of knitting, make some. And let's just cut these off. And I'll keep one of those tails of yarn for sewing with later. And same with this one. Right. So I know these 2 bits of knitting aren't the same colour, but doesn't matter. So you want a blunt needle, a bodkin. Now these come in obviously various different sizes. You want one that's not going to be too thick. Now, I might use that for chunky yarn, a big thick one like that, but for this it's going to be a bit heavy. We'll put him away, and I'm going to use this thinner one. Mattress stitch doesn't require you to pin the seam together first, and you sew it from the front. And I know that sounds a bit strange, but you've got to remember that when you're making machine knitted items, if you've been using a row counter, you'll know that your garment, both the front and the back up to the armholes, is going to have exactly the same number of rows on it. So you'll be starting at the same point on both sides of the knitting and going down row by row on each side. So you should get a perfect match when you get to the bottom. If you are a bit worried about not being able to match up stitch for stitch, to begin with, you could put some row markers up the sides of your work, maybe every 30 rows, 40 or 50 rows, so that you know that each time you hit a marker, you should be getting a match on your seam, and if you're not, then you might have to have a little look at why not. Now, okay, so that's that way up. The bit with the holes is the top, so I want the unfinished edge, which is this side, and that's the top on that one, and the unfinished edge on this piece. So I've got my threaded up bodkin, and what I'm going to do is I stitch up one whole stitch in from the edge, which is, there's the whole stitch, and I'm going to pick up the bar thread between that stitch and the next one along. So there it is. So if I hold that up so you can see that more closely, and pull it through. And then I'm going to get my other piece, go across to the other side, and pick up exactly the same stitch on this side. Now these are probably going to curl irritatingly, but your main piece of knitting obviously shouldn't. But you will have to unroll the edges as you knit, get them out between your fingertips. So there's the same stitch on this side, and pull it through. So now I'm going to go back to the other side. Don't worry about pulling it tight at this point, and find the next bar down. There's the first one, there's the second one. Just going to cut that annoying thread off. Need sharper scissors. There we go. And now start to pull it a bit closer together. And if you need to, get a pin and just pin these back so that they're not aggravating. Although you'll probably then end up getting your stitching wrapped around the pins. And so after I've done the pink one, I'm going to come back to the red and go down and find the next bar. There it is. And pull it through. Go back to the pink one, pick up the next bar, then come back to the red one. Now try not to pull these too tight to begin with, because after a while you'll be able to just draw those threads up and pull the seam together. And you don't want to over tighten it, because then it will show. I mean, obviously this shows like mad because it's two different colours. So go back to the other side, pick up the next bar, come back to the red and pick up the next bar. And there we have it, and then tighten it up. Back to the pink. Then come back to the red. And say if needs be, pin them down. Pin any loose annoying bits down and out of the way. And that's how you do a mattress stitch, or how I do a mattress stitch seam. And this is the bit I do, you know, sitting in front of the TV of an evening, do all my knitting during the day, and then do the seams at night. And then eventually you'll have a perfect stitch by stitch matched seam. Looks lovely. And if it's done in the same colours, then you can't see it. So I'm now going to, actually I'm going to pull this straight out, because it will pull straight out, because I want to reuse the red piece. Now, the backstitch neck. When you come to knit the neckband, I'm going to cut these off a little bit shorter as well. I just want them out of the way. After you've knitted the ribbed area of the neckband, you will also, on this version, as on the green one, as this green one, if you can see at the end of the ribbing, there's the rib section, and there is 3 rows of stocking stitch. And it's then taken off on waste yarn, leaving this row of open stitches all the way around the neck edge, which you then backstitch through by hand to secure it in place. So you've got a double depth rib neckband, 3 rows of stocking stitch, and then a good 10-12 rows of waste yarn. When you come to knit these neckbands, you'll put the right side of the work facing you on the machine, whereas normally it's the wrong side. And once you've done that and joined your shoulder seams, you can then sew the neck into position. Now I'm just obviously going to show this on a straight piece because I haven't got a curved bit here. But what you'll be doing is you'll be folding down your neckband and pinning it in place. And then you'll have this row of open loops to sew into position. So I'm just going to pin this down as if it were a neckband. So I've just dropped my bodkin on the floor. Oh, that's annoying. Where's it gone? Drat and botheration. I'll have to use the other one. Might actually show up a bit better. Let's see if I can find. Oh no, there's another one here. Let's try not to drop your needles on the floor. So imagine this is your neckband that has been pinned into place, and you've got this open row of stitches that you need to secure down. So again, you can usually find the end of the thread on the side of the neckband to start the sewing up with, but if not, obviously cut another piece. And I'm just going to show you along here how you do this. Now obviously it's important when you're going along here to decide which is the loop that you've got to secure and which is the space in between. And if you part the knitting, you should be able to see here, whoops, sorry, I moved it across. Here there's a loop and there isn't. Here there's a loop and there isn't. So you've got to make sure you go into the open loop, which is there. And then you're going to be doing back stitch, so you miss the next one, come up through the second one along, which is there. And again, there's the loop. And stitch that through. And we'll leave a long tail. Then you're going to do your back stitch, so you're going back. There's the open loop. Basically, if it's got a white bar or whatever colour if you've got a bar going through it, that's the space. If it's got 2 stitches or 2 halves of the stitch coming out of it, that's your loop. But look for the loop in there. That's the bit you're going to sew through. Go into there and then come up on the next one. which is there. So again, there's your bar, and it's got two halves of the stitch going out, and just you can't see it, in there is the bar going across, so you don't want to go in there. It takes a bit of practice, which is why doing it on your swatch is a good idea, so that you know that you get your eye in as to what is loop and what is a hole. And the other thing is, don't pull these stitches too tight. You want your neckband to remain nice and stretchy. So there's your stitch coming up there. And this makes this beautiful neat neckband, and it is particularly useful on small children's garments. Now there's the loop that you're securing, because it keeps the knitting nice and stretchy and can go over children's heads. So go back in the open loop and up through the next one. But just use your hand to stretch that knitting open, so you should be able to see where the loop is. That's it. In through that one. But practice, practice, practice. Yeah, everyone says, oh, your neckbands are lovely. Well, yes, I've been doing it for a very long time. So that's how you backstitch through open loops on the neckband. And when the time comes, you've gone all the way around and secured it all, take your waist yarn off, and you'll end up with a nice neat neckline. So that now has come to the end of this first series of videos that I've done for you. As I say, what I've done is gone through all of the basic techniques that you'll need to actually knit a nice garment that's going to look good when you've finished it. Now, the difficult thing about YouTube is I can put videos up, but I can't put up any documentation. So if you now want to go and follow my knit along for making a complete sweater or jumper, depending on what your word for it is. Oh, excuse me, just rescue my scissors. Please go over to Facebook and join the Machine Knitting Beginners and Returners Circle group on Facebook. As the name suggests, it's aimed at beginners. No question on there is too stupid. You can ask whatever you like. We are there to help you. I do all the Silver Reed technical stuff, and the other admins help out with the Brother, because I don't use Brother knitting machines. I don't know the first thing about, well, I know a bit about them. I don't really know much about them. But between us, we've put together some knit-alongs for you. There's patterns, there's videos, there's full pattern notes, and every step of the process has been demonstrated on video so that you can see exactly how to do each part of the process. If you would like to continue to follow me personally, I have my own page on Facebook called Kalamunda Crafts. The reason why it's called Kalamunda is explained. And I post there all my machine knitting stuff, plus other things that I do, because I do things besides machine knitting. And it's a bit of like a craft blog, craft diary, if you like. And then obviously, please follow me on YouTube as well, because I put up all my technical stuff on YouTube. So I hope you've enjoyed following this initial series. If there's anything you want to ask, please post a question and I'll try and get back to you. And happy knitting, enjoy your machine. I know I've probably made it sound a bit of a daunting task at some points along the way in these videos, but I can't stress enough how enjoyable, how fulfilling and how rewarding it is when it does all go right and you do finally make something that you're proud to wear or to give as a gift to somebody. It took me quite a number of months before I reached that point in the process. So, but look, if I can do it, anybody can. And at least these days we have got the internet. We can talk to each other wherever you are in the world. And so let's keep talking. Enjoy.